Big breaking news according to David Ornstein as Bayern Munich submit a bid for Harry Kane. On the flip side, Tottenham seemingly agreed personal terms with James Maddison. That deal looks to be edging ever closer. Roy Hodgson officially is to take charge of Crystal Palace again as their new, or slightly old to new to old manager, whichever way around you want to see it. Tino Livramento is a target of Newcastle United's. All kicking off here. But welcome along to yet another all-new news video, the show where we bring you all the latest and talk about all the latest talking points from the world of football, the biggest headlines and everything along those lines. And we're going to kick things off with obviously this Harry Kane situation. Something that I wasn't going to talk about because didn't really happen. There was nothing really new on this, but David Ornstein has obviously come out within the past few minutes and tweeted about this situation that Bayern Munich have submitted a bid for Harry Kane going forward. Now, before we get into all of these talking points, all of these stories and everything else that goes along with that, I would like to remind you all to please like the video and like the live stream as you're continuing to look through it. And if you're enjoying it, subscribe if you're new, want to see more content like this. Both things are always and forever greatly appreciated. And of course, get involved in the chat as well. I encourage you to get involved in the chat, get involved in the comment section on anything that I'm talking about or anything that you wish to talk about as we progress through this live stream. All will be greatly appreciated. All make for great and interesting reading. And all of that good stuff. So do all of that if you want. But without further ado, let's get onto the video. Let's talk all of the major talking points in football. We're starting with Harry Kane. This is big. This is obviously big breaking news today from David Ornstein. He's took to Twitter to say that Bayern Munich have today submitted an official proposal to sign Harry Kane from Tottenham Hotspur. Bayern written offer to Tottenham for 29-year-old striker worth 70 million euros plus add-ons. England captain has 1 year left of existing Spurs contracts. Huge, monumental, massive, potentially. Like Ornstein says, there's 1 year remaining on his contract. We know that obviously he's been attracting a fair amount of interest, and of course he would because he's Harry Kane and he's one of the top strikers in Europe right now. Phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal if this obviously is to come about. We know that Bayern are looking for a striker. They know they're looking to reinforce that attacking lineup. The gamble of Sadio Mane kind of replacing Robert Lewandowski didn't work. They tried having Serge Gnabry up front, didn't quite work. In the Bundesliga, they barely managed to just scrape that Bundesliga title for something along the lines of like the 10th or 12th year in a row or whatever it was. And of course, in the Champions League, it was very disappointing when obviously they got knocked out in rather embarrassing way to Manchester City, the eventual winners of that competition. They needed to reinforce, and we know that obviously they have been looking to reinforce not just the striking area, but across multiple areas of their squad as well. But Thomas Tuchel has been looking at the striking area in particular, looking to try and find some sort of replacement for Lewandowski, and he seems to have identified it in Harry Kane. Now, we know that obviously Bayern Munich have held a fair bit of interest in Kane in the past, but we never really thought anything would materialize because Bayern don't normally make these kind of big money these big money signings. They don't normally part with a great deal of money. But according to David Ornstein, they are looking to push the boat out a little bit. They're looking to reinforce in a strong way. And if this is going to be legitimate, and let's face it, with David Ornstein, there is what's the expression that's commonly used? There's no smoke without fire. So I guess with David Ornstein, you could say that there is some legitimacy to it, because if you have seen David Ornstein over the past couple of weeks since the transfer window has been open, and even before that in previous transfer windows, you'll know that he 9 times out of 10 is right about most stuff. And look, he's not saying that this is going to happen. He's not going to say that Tottenham and Daniel Levy are going to accept this offer. But at the same time, I would be surprised if there is legitimacy behind this bid opening up for Harry Kane from the German Giants. 70 million euros up front plus add-ons. Huge. And we know that obviously with entering the final year of his contract, they'll be looking to try and negotiate the price down. It seems that Tottenham will want something in the process of like over 100 million. And I've said before, and I'll say again, if Kane wants to show some ambition, he's going to want to try and force a way out of Tottenham. If he's going to want to show some ambition in terms of winning some trophies, he's going to want to try and force his way out. It may not be the most professional of things to do, but I don't think any Tottenham fan can really hold it against him if he wants out of the club in order to maintain some sort of legacy within football to go on and win trophies. Now, at Bayern, it doesn't represent maybe the same level of trophies as, say, going to Manchester United might hold in the future if obviously that move was to reignite itself and that move was to actually come to fruition. And if United were to continue on the upwards trajectory that, of course, Ten Hag has set them upon from his first season in charge of the club. And, of course, this big money takeover is going to happen, if it will happen. But he will be guaranteed trophies because, let's face it, he goes over to the Bundesliga. He goes over to Bayern Munich. Bayern Munich are going to win the Bundesliga title. There's no doubt in my mind about that. I think this year could be a bit more competitive. This year could be a bit more close. But I think if they are to reinforce themselves with a clinical and prolific enough striker like Harry Kane up front, in my mind, Bayern win the title again. Bayern win the German Cup again. Bayern become a force again in the Champions League. Simple as that. They've got some work to do. Of course they have. They've got their defensive issues. They've got to reinforce their midfield a little bit, I think, in my opinion. But having that clinical striker is fearsome enough that it makes them more of a threat than what they have been for the past couple of years or so, in my opinion. This could be huge. Am I expecting it to happen? Probably not. I'm not expecting it probably to happen because, A, I don't think Daniel Levy will, although he may rather suit Harry Kane if he was forced to sell him to go to a foreign club, I don't think he's going to sell him for this kind of price. So it'll be interesting to see if the negotiations can take place and whether Bayern Munich are willing to part with more money or whether there can be some sort of part exchange deal, maybe some sort of swap deal that maybe Tottenham are looking for and interested in, as well as money up front for Kane. It will be interesting to see if all of that stuff will happen and what will happen in the negotiations of this potential big money transfer. But like I say, it makes sense for Bayern Munich, and I think it will make sense for Tottenham too. And I say that simply for the reason that they can finally put this whole Harry Kane saga to bed. If they were to just sell him and sell him to Bayern Munich, like, it's not ideal. Of course, you don't want to part with your best player, but at the same time, you get a decent fee for it. You don't have then the risk of losing him on a free transfer for the next year when, of course, his contract would expire at Spurs at the end of next season. Get a bit of money for him, and then you can reinvest that money in other areas of the squad that obviously need strengthening and need beefing up. Because let's face it, there is going to be a fair amount of clear out, I would imagine, at Spurs this summer with obviously Ange Postecoglou coming in. And he's going to need as much money and as much resources as possible to try and obviously resurrect and reinvent this whole Tottenham squad to something of a bit of a force again, something that's going to cause teams problems, cause opposition teams problems up and down the league. So I think it might make the right move for Spurs to get rid of Kane. Bayern coming in now officially is going to be interesting. Does Harry Kane want to leave the Premier League for the Bundesliga? Like I say, it may not represent the ideal situation for Kane. Of course, I think he still wants to break that Premier League goal scoring record. But what would mean more to him? Would a few league titles and a few German Cups maybe between now and the end of his career mean more than for him to go on and break the Premier League all-time goal scoring record? I would say, yeah. And also, of course, there'll be more of a chance of him winning the Champions League, of course, because, not only are Bayern in it and Tottenham are not, but I think Thomas Tuchel could still beef up and reinforce that Bayern squad to a point where maybe, just maybe, they may be stronger and they may have more of a chance of winning it than they have done in the past couple of years. Obviously, stranger things have happened, and of course, they've still got a lot of competition within that competition itself of being the all-time top goal scorer. Again, I'll reiterate what I said in the previous video. This is a team game, and as much as scoring plenty of goals and becoming the all-time top goal scorer goes, yeah, it's a fantastic achievement. It's a fantastic individual achievement, but this is a team game. This is all based around winning trophies. This is all based around helping your team, helping a club get to glory. And all of those goals, if you're not winning trophies and you're not getting to multiple finals and everything, mean pretty much nothing come the end of your career if you've got nothing to show for it other than a couple of golden boots and a couple of individual awards. If you wanted individual awards, go for a much more individual sport. Go for golf. Go for tennis. I don't understand why you'd want to waste your career at Tottenham. If it's just because he's a massive fan of Tottenham and he just wants to play for Tottenham, then on some sort of level, it's admirable. But it also, to me, says that he lacks ambition and he lacks a real drive to go and challenge himself somewhere else, to win trophies, to go on and leave some sort of legacy within the game, other than the fact that you were just known as a player who was somewhat selfish, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but somewhat selfish in the way that you just wanted individual awards. You've got a few golden boots, whether it be one for England in the World Cup or a couple for Tottenham across your years stay, your many years of service to that club. For me, and obviously there is also possibly the reignition of Manchester United coming in. And I did allude to that earlier, that maybe, just maybe, if this takeover is to get done within the coming days, which allegedly we are going to be finding out very, very soon as to what the situation at Manchester United is going to be in terms of their takeover. Maybe Manchester United come back in for him. Maybe Manchester United come back in for him. They get the takeover done. They understand the direction the club's going in. They see what kind of money is available. They see Bayern Munich are trying to swoop in on this Harry Kane deal. Maybe, just maybe, it might tempt Manchester United back in. We know they are looking for a striker themselves. We know that obviously Harry Kane, in my opinion, fits the bill completely in terms of the criteria of striker and the specification of a striker that they are looking for. Maybe, just maybe, Manchester United are going to be the team to come back in for him. Maybe, just maybe, Harry Kane will be leaving Spurs this summer, whether it's going to be to Bayern, whether it's going to be to Manchester United, whether Real Madrid can find the money from somewhere to maybe come back in for him, if obviously that story and that link is to reignite itself similar to the Manchester United one. It could all be very intriguing going forward watching this Harry Kane saga. But like I said, what we do know is in regards to David Ornstein, he has stated today on Twitter that Bayern Munich have submitted a bid for Harry Kane, and this one could definitely heat up going forward. And I'm very intrigued to see what the future holds for Harry Kane, what the future holds for Tottenham, if this deal is going to go any further than this point, what the situation storyline is going to be for this one. I'm very intrigued to find out. Personally, I don't think Daniel Levy is going to accept this sort of offer. But if there's going to be negotiations, if Bayern are going to up their price, if maybe they're looking for another bid from elsewhere to kind of swoop in at the 11th hour, like from a Manchester United or like from a Real Madrid, say, this one could genuinely heat up. But we'll wait and see on that one. I for one, am very, very intrigued by this. And like I say, I think it's a big decision for Harry Kane to make. Like I say, don't get me wrong. winning trophies and all of that is something important. And it's something, obviously, he definitely needs to consider. And especially if it is going to be Bayern Munich, you're more guaranteed to win trophies at Bayern Munich than a lot of other places out there, especially Spurs. But at the same time, does he want to stay in the Premier League? Does he want to break that all-time goal-scoring record? And if so, does he try and hold out for a move to, say, a Manchester United? Or does he just have to say, you know what, I'll just stay at Spurs because I don't show the ambition, but I just want to get that Premier League all-time goal-scoring record? Be interesting to obviously find out from Harry Kane's point of view what he thinks of this and what happens going forward. Like I say, from Tottenham's point of view, I think they'll want more money. I think they'll want to try and milk this for as much as possible. But of course, they are running a very, very big risk of losing him on a free next year when his contract does expire. Kane's had a fantastic season this past year, in which obviously, if it wasn't for a certain Erling Haaland scoring more goals and breaking more goal-scoring records, he would have been the man to be talking about. He dragged and carried Tottenham on his back all season, led them to an 8th place finish. Now, 8th place isn't that great, considering obviously there's no European football to gain from that kind of position. But to get as high as 8th, pretty much on your own, is still a fantastic achievement in itself. But as I said before, this is not an individual sport. This is not an individual game. This is a team sport, a team game, a club game, in which obviously trophies are the aim of the game. Winning trophies and gaining success is obviously what matters most. And he's playing like an individual. I don't understand, don't see how he cannot at least be wanting out of that club. And with him being 29 as well, things can change in football very, very quickly. Teams like Bayern, teams like Man United will always move on very quickly. They'll always find the next guy that may be the next star. Look at Man City. When they chased Kane a few years ago, they moved on a year later to Erling Haaland. That's how much they moved on very quickly from that, from Kane to Haaland. If Kane had gone to City, we may be sat here right now with Haaland maybe at Real Madrid, maybe at Bayern Munich. He could have been anywhere else, because I don't think they would have gone for both in consecutive years. Things just seem to move on pretty quickly in that aspect. And for me, it's going to be very intriguing to find out where his future will lie. And what obviously is going to be the case for Tottenham Hotspur going forward. Like I say, going to be very intriguing to find out the future of one Harry Kane. But, of course, we will be trying to find that out, trying to work that out as we go along. Like I said, I'm expecting that bid to be rejected. And then it's up to Bayern Munich. Do they go in for more? Does someone else come in and try and swoop in for him? Like I say, don't take your eyes off Manchester United. I still think that Manchester United link will reignite itself once the takeover deal is done. I think they are in desperate need of a striker, and I think they are worried of falling behind if they do not get that striker. So I wouldn't be surprised if United's name will still be linked with him going forward, depending on when the takeover happens. If it happens, obviously I think we're going to be finding out somewhere around the next 24 to 48 hours or so, or give them more of a clue of what's going to happen there. But as far as what Daniel... And let's face it, it doesn't make any sense for Tottenham to lose him on a free anyway. Daniel Levy's a businessman, and, you know, he may not have a clue about football half the time, or majority of the time, or all of the time, but he knows business. As a businessman, he's smart and he does know business. He knows that losing Harry Kane on a free transfer is not the best for business. So it would make sense for him to cash in on Harry Kane whilst he has the opportunity and the presence of Kane and the ownership of Kane to do so. So it only makes sense in that aspect to do that, but we'll wait and see whether that happens or not. Moving on, we're going to stick with Spurs for our next story, because they may be losing Harry Kane, but they have seemingly making advances and pursuit on one James Maddison of Leicester. Allegedly, personal terms have been agreed between the player and the club, and now it's just a case of agreeing a fee between both Tottenham and Leicester now. Allegedly, Leicester wants something in the region of £60 million, which, give or take, could work. And I think it is actually a very good price for Tottenham to actually get this deal done and dusted. If this is to be the case, I think this is a fantastic signing by Spurs. I think that given his Premier League proven record and the amount of goals he scored for Leicester and the amount of assists he's created for Leicester as well, I think this is a fantastic signing, a fantastic addition to a squad, a much needed addition to the squad to provide goals and creativity from obviously that midfield area, in which, when you look at that midfield area on paper, it's full of very similar sort of more defensive and more reserved type of players. When you look at the likes of Bentancur in there and Oliver Skip and Harry Winks and whoever else they have in that midfield area that has completely escaped me, they're not exactly the most forward-thinking, progressive type of midfielders. Maddison can definitely be something different in that area that they need, and it makes sense for them to go after a player of his caliber, his quality, and what he brings to a squad in terms of his assets and obviously his strengths as a player. What I don't understand from this is, why are Spurs leading the charge for this? A team with mediocrity, a team who are mediocre, a team who've not got any kind of European football this season. How are Spurs leading the race for this? Now, I know that obviously Newcastle were interested and they're kind of mainly turned their attention to Sandro Tonali. And that deal seems to be going forward and will be done very, very soon, it seems. And fair play to Newcastle for that one. Shows a massive amounts of ambition. And I'll say again, like, that's incredible for me. Like, Newcastle signing Tonali is absolutely incredible to me. I get that. But for me, I know obviously there are question marks over his pressing. I know there are question marks over his tackling and his defensive side of the game. But it's not like he's terrible. It's not like you can't work with him on that. It's not like you can sort of say, right, well, you fail at this area, so we're just not going to have you at all. Especially in this kind of system. If one thing we know about Postecoglou is he likes to play attacking football, he likes to be on the front foot, and he likes to press very quickly and very high up. Bringing in Maddison is going to be very similar to that. He's going to want him to play into that system, play into the way that he wants to play. So why are Tottenham leading the charge for this? Because for me, Maddison improves the midfield of every team in the Premier League, from top to bottom. In my opinion, I think he could do a fantastic job for Manchester City. For me, he can do a brilliant job at Arsenal, obviously. For me, he can do a great job at Chelsea. Do a fantastic job. I mean, just to go back on that Chelsea point, a midfield of Caicedo, Enzo Fernandez, and James Maddison in a Pochettino system is absolutely filthy, in my opinion. Like, on paper and in my mind, it's working perfectly. I just don't understand why no one else is interested. Liverpool improves their midfield greatly. Improves the midfield of Newcastle. Improves the midfield. I mean, obviously, I talked about Newcastle before, but even so, still improves it. Improves the midfield of Brighton. Improves the midfield of Aston Villa, of whoever else it is. And for 60 million. And again, I'll go back to the Arsenal point on this one. Arsenal have just signed Kai Havertz for 65 million. And you're telling me that Leicester are letting Maddison, a more Premier League proven, less of a gamble player, go for £60 million, whilst they've gone and bought Kai Havertz, who is lost because he doesn't seem to have a nailed down position, is a player who is a big gamble because we know there's some sort of player in there. We just don't know what kind of player or where his best position is or what exactly he does well on a consistent basis or any of these kinds of question marks that are hanging over his head in regards to a big money move. You've got this guy who is Premier League proven, gets into about 20 goals and assists per season for Leicester for the past several years, creates a multitude of big game chances, and maybe with better players around him, with all due respect to Leicester, and obviously a better striker maybe to play off in, if obviously he's going to stay Harry Kane, but according to today, maybe not. The partnership that those two England players can build up together could be immense. Maddison, the feeder and creator, Kane, the goal scorer, the finisher. That could be an insane partnership that could work with the amount of chances that Maddison creates, with the big goals he can come up with and score, with his creativity, his good technical ability, the way that he can open up defenses, whether it be through his dribbling or through his passing, the creative side of his assists, and of course he's not bad from set pieces either. I don't understand why Tottenham are the front runners for this and no one else is joining in the race. I personally don't. I don't quite understand it. But on the flip side for Spurs, if they manage to get this deal done, this could be huge. And I think that this is a very well done and put together deal by Daniel Levy. I think this could be pretty huge for Spurs, pretty huge for Tottenham, and a brilliant deal for them to consider. Fabrizio Romano took to Twitter to say that Tottenham have agreed personal terms with James Maddison as negotiations with Leicester are finally advancing. Talks are underway. Understand Spurs chairman Daniel Levy is very active on this deal, trying to get it done as soon as possible. Now, from that point of view, I'll say that it looks positive for Spurs, but as we know with Daniel Levy, he doesn't like to mess around with his dealings, and we do know that he tries to save a few quid here and there. And obviously, the more you mess around, the more that you may intrigue other teams in this. So I think Tottenham will need to move very quickly on this to get it done, dusted, and over the line and confirmed. But for me, like I say, if they can get this deal done, if Daniel Levy just goes in, lays the money on the table and says, there you go, take it or leave it, why not? Why not? Why not get this deal done and dusted? For me, I think it's a smart move. I think it's a good move. I like it. I'm a bit jealous of it, in all honesty, coming from Tottenham. I never thought I'd say I'd be a bit jealous of Tottenham and their transfer business. But if they manage to get this deal done and dusted, I like it a lot. And now it's whether or not, of course, Tottenham can keep hold of their star striker, because I think having someone to creatively feed for him from a different area of the pitch, from an area where they definitely need someone to step up more and more in an attacking sense, whether it be through chipping in with goals, whether it be through creativity and assists. Maddison, for me, is a very good and solid piece of business, and I like it a lot. And like I say, I cannot believe other Premier League teams are just sitting back and letting this happen, in all honesty. So we'll wait and see, obviously, if they can get this deal done and dusted. We'll wait and see if obviously Tottenham can either get this deal done and dusted and confirmed, or whether it's going to be another Tottenham screw up on this matter. But like I say, I rate this deal very, very highly, and I like it a lot. If I am to be completely neutral about this situation. Moving on, story that we've covered a lot during this transfer window. And to be honest, I'm getting a bit sick of it, to be honest, even though there has been obviously a fair few developments. Declan Rice of West Ham. Now, obviously, we know that Arsenal have been in pole position for a very long time on this matter. We know that obviously Arsenal have been pushing really hard to try and get this deal done and dusted. Chad Tyrone, hey dude, how are you doing? Welcome along to the stream. Welcome to the channel. What's up? I hope you're well, mate. And if you've obviously got any thoughts or comments on anything to do with what I'm talking about here, feel free to chime in. It would be great to hear from you. Where is it? So yes, the Declan Rice situation. We obviously know that Arsenal have been pushing hard. We obviously know that they've been locked in negotiations with West Ham and obviously Declan Rice for some time. Who are you supporting? I'm a Liverpool fan, mate. I'm a Liverpool fan, but I just love talking about football and the Premier League in particular. So here we are. Who do you support, my dude? Who do you support? Would be very nice to know who you support as well. Last night, and obviously this is not really major breaking news, but obviously we knew that Manchester City were involved and we knew that they were going to get involved. And eventually they did. Last night, there was an exclusive that West Ham had received a formal offer from Manchester City to sign Declan Rice. Manchester City proposing deal worth 80 million plus 10 million in add-ons after second Arsenal bid of 75 million plus 15 million rejected last week. Arsenal pursuit of main target is still ongoing. We knew this from Manchester City. That comes from David Ornstein, by the way. So again, there's some truth and legitimacy to it. And obviously it was followed up on by a number of top tier journalists, the likes of Fabrizio Romano and the like. We knew this was going to happen. We knew that it was only a matter of time. But of course, it finally happened. And Manchester City got involved in the bidding war. Now, from having that bid go in last night, this morning, quickly rejected. Ornstein again took to Twitter to say that West Ham have turned down Manchester City offer for Declan Rice. Manchester City made formal proposal last night with 80 million plus 10 million in add-ons. West Ham unimpressed and quickly rejected it. Arsenal have seen 2 bids rebuffed but remain determined to sign 24-year-old. So again, we're back to square one here. I don't understand on City's part. I know obviously it's about structure in kind of these dealings and everything. I just don't understand why you go in with a very similar sort of bid that Arsenal went in for. You've seen Arsenal mess around with their transfer for a while. You've seen them in locked in negotiations and still managed to come up with a deal structure that has really unimpressed West Ham and really not been great from their point of view. And yet you go in there with a only slightly more improved bid in terms of what they're going to be getting up front in terms of 80 million rather than 75, and then a 10 million pound in add-ons. And you think that that's going to be enough. Now, I get negotiations and I get that. But at the same time, just go in and put the money on the table. Arsenal have messed around with this deal for way too long. And obviously, if City are to come in for Declan Rice and they are to go in with more authority and more ruthlessness, you would expect City to maybe get this deal done and dusted. Fabrizio Romano goes on to say that he understands that Arsenal will respond to Manchester City's official proposal submitted last night for Declan Rice. Arsenal will bid again after 2 proposals rejected in recent weeks. They are not giving up at this stage. Both City and Arsenal have plans to bid for Rice this week. The tug of war continues. And for me, like I say, one of these two sides needs to just be a bit ruthless and relentless about this and just pay the money. Just put the money on the table and say, take it or leave it, because we know Rice is going to leave. We know that West Ham are in a favourable position, shall we say, as of right now, that they don't really need to sell. They've got a year or 2 left on Declan Rice's current deal to see it out. And then obviously there's a lot of money at stake. And we know that what West Ham want is a bidding war to get the best deal possible. One of these two sides needs to just be ruthless and relentless, put the money on the table, because the longer this draws on, the more annoying it's going to get for fans and the more annoying it will get for one of these two teams to want to get in. And it'll be worth it in the end. But I just don't understand what they're messing around at, particularly Arsenal, who I will reiterate and state again, after several months and weeks of negotiations, whether it be in terms of negotiating personal terms, negotiating with the club in terms of a transfer fee, to go in with the kind of offers that they have, the structures that they have, even though they knew and know what kind of structure West Ham are after, it to me doesn't make any sense why you try and really lowball the offer. I get negotiations. I get trying to get the best price. But you know that West Ham are not going to budge on their asking price, their deal structure, and what they want from this deal of their star talisman player. I don't understand it. I don't understand what Arsenal are messing around at. And they've messed around for too long. And now, of course, Man City have jumped into the bidding war. They're like a lion that has watched the other lion play around with their food for long enough, and they've decided to pounce. And I thought they'd be more relentless, and I thought they'd just put the money on the table and West Ham would accept it. That hasn't happened as of right now. And we'll see, obviously, how the bidding war and negotiations process kind of goes going forward between these two sides, and, of course, between Declan Rice and West Ham. But for me, I am a little bit confused as to why one of these two sides just hasn't just bit the bullet, so to speak, and just gone for it. Did I answer that one? Who are you supporting? I'm a Liverpool fan. If you're still here, I'm a Liverpool fan. Would love to know who you're supporting, my guy. Hope you're doing well. But yeah, that's just my thoughts on the Declan Rice situation. We're obviously waiting to see what will happen going forward, and what will happen with this situation. Kind of a little bit bored of talking about it because we know what's going to happen. We know it's going to be between these two sides. There is a slight possibility, and there are rumours that maybe Manchester United are involved again. But like I say, it really does depend on this whole Manchester United takeover. And the longer that takeover continues to drag itself out, obviously, the more risk they are of missing out on not just, obviously, this kind of target, but also other targets down the line. You see that a lot of teams are trying to get their business done early, which makes sense and obviously has been the way of doing things for many a year now. But the longer that this continues, obviously, the more United are going to miss out, and they're going to have to play catch up later on in the season. Pre-season is only a couple of weeks away from starting. So United really need to get a move on if they want to try and get preparations for this season very much underway. We know that they're going to look to try and have a bit of a fire sale. We know that they're going to try and want to have a bit of a clear out of the team. And we know that obviously they're going to try and want to bring players in that are ready for the new season under Erik ten Hag. They need to get a move on in this. And I know that obviously it's with the Glazers. And I know that obviously there was a big protest today as the new kit launched. But they really need to get a move on this. Like, as a rival fan, I'm not bothered. Like, take all the time that you want. But if I am to speak neutrally about this, and I always try to speak neutrally about all of these kinds of matters and stories, need to get a move on. And like I say, do I expect them to jump in on this Declan Rice deal? Probably not. I think the ship might have sailed, and I think that it's going to be between Arsenal and Man City in this weird sort of tug of war in which both sides are seemingly messing around with this transfer to the point where we'll have to wait and see. Next story, just a quick one. Roy Hodgson has agreed to stay on as Crystal Palace manager next season. The 75-year-old will sign a new contract when he returns from holiday. That was obviously the story that was buzzing around yesterday in regards to Crystal Palace and their manager search. There was question marks over whether Roy Hodgson was going to remain on as the Crystal Palace manager after taking over from Patrick Vieira on an interim basis towards the end of last season. I'll reiterate again what I said when he first took over, or when he again took over, should I say. I don't get it. I personally don't get it. I know that obviously Palace wanted a bit of stability and a bit of reliability. They were threatened by the thought of relegation because although they were, I think, 12th at the time, they were only 6 points clear of the drop zone. And they were very, very worried that obviously with how quickly one or two results can change the complexion and the look of the Premier League table down in the relegation zone, they were worried that they may be dragged into it. Roy Hodgson comes in and from out of nowhere, not only did Palace start winning games again, but they start scoring plenty of goals. And that was the real bizarre thing about Hodgson's interim appointment, is that they were scoring plenty of goals at their free will. and it helped them to survive. Now, what I will say is that this isn't the most forward thinking. This isn't the most long-term sustainable appointment that they could possibly make. And it begs the question, what was the point of the whole Patrick Vieira experiment if you weren't going to try and follow through on it, or if you weren't going to try and build upon it, and you were just going to go back to square one with Roy Hodgson anyway? Like, don't get me wrong, seems a nice guy. He seems like he does well with these types of teams like Crystal Palace, where he has, I wouldn't say like extremely low expectations, but I would say he has the ability to go above and beyond his station, and he has the ability and the potential to overachieve, shall we say. This for me doesn't necessarily make a complete lot of sense. It's reliable. They're part of the furniture now, I guess you'd say, in the Premier League, and I guess that this appointment may continue that for at least a foreseeable future. But to me, it doesn't show no ambition. It doesn't show no progression in terms of a different type of manager that can obviously maybe take them forward, or at least look to try and take them forward and take them to a higher standing. What they finished, was it 11th this season? Comfortable and solid mid-table finish. Why not try and aim a little higher for next season? Like, and maybe they could do that under Roy Hodgson. Maybe that could be a possibility for them. But like I say, I don't see it being long-term and sustainable when it's a manager who comes in with a different philosophy and a different ideology to the previous manager, and someone who is just very much different and obviously a little bit old school in Roy Hodgson than obviously Patrick Vieira was. And it makes the past couple of years under Patrick Vieira completely pointless and an experiment that in hindsight probably wasn't worth trying to do. So I don't personally get it, but at the same time, if it works for Palace, it works for Palace. It could definitely work out for them in the long run. Well, not necessarily the long run, but maybe the short term. And then in the long run, they've got another decision to make. But this does buy them some time to obviously give them a chance to look at where the club will be going, how the club will get there, a step-by-step sort of thing to where they want to be, wherever that obviously may be. And for the final story I want to talk about, a very intriguing one developed last night in terms of Tino Livramento to Newcastle. Very intriguing one, this one, because this one came from, I believe, the Telegraph. Just want to find it here just so that I'm giving the right credit to John Percy. That was it, John Percy. This one came from the Telegraph, and John Percy, who basically stated, he was talking a fair amount yesterday about Leicester and about the James Maddison situation. He was talking a little bit about certain other areas as well, and other clubs. He also brought up this Tino Livramento situation in regards to him being linked with a move to Newcastle. Now, obviously, with Southampton being relegated, we know that obviously that meant that a lot of clubs were maybe circling around the idea of taking some of their top talent and top players from that club and moving them on. The likes of Romeo Lavia. I keep pronouncing his name wrong for some reason. I don't understand why. It's a very simple name. The likes of Romeo Lavia being one of them. He is being linked with a lot of interest, to be honest. Like, Arsenal were seemingly in pole position to sign him. We know that Liverpool have made their interest known in the young midfielder as well. Chelsea and Manchester United are allegedly keeping an eye on this situation as well. So that's another one. James Ward-Prowse is another player that seems to be attracting a fair amount of interest. Whether there'll be a move there remains to be seen. But Livramento is another player that is seemingly on the wanted list of Newcastle United. Now, this player, of course, has had a bit of a torrid time with injury this past year. He did something with his ACL that kind of ruled him out for the large majority of this past year. And he's only just came back. But before, obviously, his injury, he was highly raved about, highly sought of, and very much talked about as being, I want to say like the next big thing. But at the same time, I think he was being talked about and put in the bracket of the conversation of one of the best in his position, or could become one of the best in his position in terms of the Premier League and everything. Came from Chelsea to Southampton, really turned a lot of heads, shall we say, in terms of how well he played for the club at that point. And then, of course, his injury came and it halted him. Since then, of course, his club has been relegated in Southampton. And that possibly might mean that he may be on the verge of leaving the club for a bit of a cut price deal. Percy went on to say that it could be something in the region of £15 million, something between 12 and 15 million. But there could also be other areas of this deal to explore, mainly the possibility of maybe Newcastle giving a couple of players to Southampton as part exchange for this deal, the likes of Jeff Hendrick and Ryan Fraser. That's it. I can't remember who it was. Ryan Fraser possibly being on the chopping block at Newcastle in terms of players to get rid, could be used as a bargaining chip for Livramento in this potential deal, meaning that Newcastle might get an even more cut price, but they lose two players in the process who, let's face it, they seemingly don't really want to need. So Southampton get a couple of Premier League proven players, and obviously Newcastle get a right back to cover for Kieran Trippier. And obviously with Trippier not exactly getting any younger, and obviously will want some sort of competition for his place, and obviously will want some cover for his place as he goes forward, Livramento could be a very solid choice, a player with a lot of room to grow, a lot of room to continue to evolve. I get it. It's smart. My only concern is that obviously having been away for a long time with a major injury, will he come back to being at his best? Will he come back to picking up from where he left off? Will he continue to grow as a player, or will that injury have stopped him mentally? Will it have stopped him physically? Will it have took something away from him physically, that maybe we won't see the same guy, or maybe we won't see the progression that we expect to see from this guy going forward? There are a few question marks, but I think if they can get a cut price deal for him in this aspect, I think it's a gamble that is definitely worth taking. Southampton allegedly are looking for something in the region of £30 million. But of course, like I say, maybe part exchange with a couple of players might be something they may look at as well, and may decide to try and explore. And obviously, with them being in the Championship and with Newcastle on this upwards trajectory and being in the Champions League football, it may be a bit of an upwards battle that maybe Southampton are facing in trying to keep Livramento as one of their players going forward. So we'll have to wait and see on this one, of course. But this one actually did very much intrigue me as a guy that obviously is very much raved about, very much talked about before his big ACL injury, and then of course went on to have that injury. And it's going to be a question mark now as to how he comes back. If he comes back to the same level, does he go on to progress, or does he slightly digress a little bit, doesn't quite reach the potential because of that major injury? We'll obviously have to wait and see on that one. But yes, a lot buzzing around today, a lot to kind of digest and talk about. The big news, obviously, is Harry Kane being the subject to a possible transfer to Bayern Munich. Like I said, I don't necessarily think it's going to happen. I don't think for the money that is Bayern are presenting right now, it's going to happen. But it does make for interesting reading. And of course, this kind of thing can inspire other teams to get involved in the bidding war. And I think at the end of the day, I think that's what Daniel Levy wants, a bidding war. He wants to try and milk this for as much as he can get. Because remember, in my opinion, it doesn't make much business sense for Tottenham to lose Kane on a free next year when his contract does expire. And I think we all know that Levy is a smart businessman. and we know that he will want to kind of cash in on him whilst he has the opportunity to. Of course, he would rather, I think, Kane stay in the hopes that he can maybe win them something between now and the end of his career, but that does seem very much unlikely. We know, obviously, money talks in this game, and we know that, obviously, he's going to want to cash in on him whilst he has the opportunity to do so. So it's a big summer transfer window for Harry Kane. The news of Bayern Munich's interest obviously comes around today from David Ornstein of The Athletic. Big decision time. Big decision time for Harry Kane. And I think, like I say, if he wants to leave, and he definitely maybe has his heart set on Bayern Munich, he's got to obviously do something to try and get out of that club if he wants to obviously win trophies and have a bit more of a guarantee. Nothing's ever a true guarantee, but a bit more of a guarantee and a much more likelihood of him obviously reaching that potential, reaching that goal and everything. We'll obviously have to wait and see. Guys, do leave a like on this live stream if you are enjoying it, or hit the subscribe button if you're obviously enjoying the content or want to see more content like this. Both things are always and very greatly appreciated. Get involved in the chat, talk about Harry Kane, talk about James Maddison, talk about anything that you guys want to talk about in this deal, because it could all make interesting reading. Just go over this one more time, see if there's anything I missed. Yeah, as I said before, the whole Harry Kane thing. I've just been reading here a tweet from Alistair Gold, again, top tier Tottenham favoured journalist. He says that Spurs still making it very clear that they would immediately reject a bid for Harry Kane should they receive one. Again, everybody has their price. I don't care how world-class you are. I don't care how good you are. Everybody has their price. And obviously, like I say, with 1 year left on his contract, for me, it doesn't make sense for Daniel Levy to reject every offer. If Bayern were to come in with 100 million up front and then like 20 million add-ons or whatever it may be, I think that would strongly be considered by Tottenham and by Daniel Levy in terms of obviously maybe selling Harry Kane once they have the opportunity to do so and reinvesting that money in the squad. I think personally, it would make the most sense for that to happen. I think personally, it would make the most sense for Tottenham to move on from this Harry Kane situation, give him the freedom to go out and maybe go and get a few trophies before his career ends, and then use that money to reinvest. I know it's obviously going to be tough to kind of replace a striker of Kane's quality. And really, let's face it, there's only really one player or one striker in particular who you could argue could replace him and do just as good, if not a better job in that position. And that, of course, is Erling Haaland, which is going to be very much impossible. But reinvesting that money across majority of areas of the squad that needs strengthening. And we know that obviously this Tottenham squad needs to be reinvented. We know that this Tottenham squad needs to be completely ripped out and started again. Having the money there that they could get from this Harry Kane deal and just changing the squad could be something that Tottenham need as a fresh, clean break from this saga, from this deal. It frees Harry Kane. I think it would do good for all parties to have a fresh start and a clean break away from each other. And as much as it may be difficult, I think sometimes it's got to be a bit ruthless. And I think sometimes it's got to be a bit relentless to obviously start that. I think Tottenham fans are sort of open to that idea, or they're slowly starting to come around to more and more of that idea. I'm intrigued to know if there are any Tottenham fans watching and have any thoughts on this situation. But yeah, I'm very much intrigued by how this is going to play out and whether or not this is going to spark more interest, more of a bidding war. Bayern Munich coming back in with another bid. Manchester United getting this takeover thing situation out of the way and done with and coming back in for him. Real Madrid coming back in for him if they sell a couple of players. What the situation may be when it comes to Harry Kane. For me, this is his last chance. I know that obviously he leaves on a free next year, and obviously he could go wherever he still wants. I know he'll be 30, 31 years of age by that point. But he'll still be a clinical striker. He'll still be a quality striker who will still have a couple of more years at least left in the tank. But for me, I feel like this will be his last chance. A big money move, last chance to break away. Because like I say, things in football can change very, very quickly. Who's to say that Manchester United won't move on to another striker who may come in, a bit more of a gamble than Harry Kane, but who's to say that that gamble won't pay off? Who's to say that Bayern won't go after someone else in this transfer window? Who's to say that a Victor Osimhen won't be leaving Napoli this summer and going to one of these clubs and absolutely taking the league and that club by storm? And then we're all sat there going, Harry who? The same way that obviously the year that City were after Harry Kane, didn't get him, and then of course went after Haaland the next year. We might not have seen Haaland in a Man City shirt had Harry Kane joined the year before. Lots of things of these have knock-on effects that would be very interesting for us to see. Darren Ferron, hey dude, how are you doing? Nice to see you coming along. I am a Spurs fan. I never seen Levy lie in public when he says a player is not for sale. Like I say, I think everybody has their price. Everybody has their price. And obviously you say that he's not for sale. Everybody says that. As a Liverpool fan, I can sit here and say that FSG would probably say that Mohamed Salah is not for sale. Alisson Becker is not for sale. But if a Saudi Arabian club or whoever else came in with a substantial and monumental bid, you can guarantee that they're going to be sold. Because at the end of the day, these kinds of businessmen are exactly that. They're just businessmen. They don't care about the football. They don't really care about the success unless obviously that success brings money with it. Money has to be a part of everything. You look at City's owners, they care about making a statement. They care about making an impact. They care about winning because they're from these countries that have got bottomless pits of money that they just want to find new challenges and they want to go out there and just do whatever it is that they want to do in order to be known and notorious. They want challenges. These kinds of businessmen that my club's got, that your club's got, that Man United currently have, they just see the business side. They see the money side. And I think everybody has their price. Everybody has that, imagine that invisible price tag above their head that only the owners of those players can see. And I think if Kane does get a big enough price, does get a big enough transfer fee, you can guarantee he's going to go. I agree with you that we should sell Kane though. Like I say, I think it's best for both. I think it's best for all parties. I think it is genuinely best for all parties that he does go. I think it's best for Kane that he can move on, clean break, fresh start, and obviously go to a club that is more likely to win trophies. I think it's good for Spurs that they can put this whole saga to rest. They don't have to focus on Harry Kane as much, and they can just go and be a club again and get everybody back on side and maybe reinvest that money across the whole of that team. And obviously, whoever they do sell into is going to have one hell of a striker on their hands. As much as it may disappoint a lot of Tottenham fans and as much as they may not like it, your attention should not be drawn to how much you hate Harry Kane, if that is to be the case. Your attention should not be drawn to how much you hate the players or your own fans for trying to get rid of Harry Kane. Your attention should be drawn to the owners who, of course, didn't build around Harry Kane and the likes of Son Heung-min as well, whilst they were in their prime, whilst they had the opportunity to do so, or didn't back the likes of Maurizio Pochettino, who obviously came close to winning silverware, came close to getting them somewhere in the league. But when he needed that final push and that extra bit of pushing the boat out a little bit more in terms of recruitment and transfers, it never arrived from the owners. It never arrived. And when obviously that was the time where Kane was in his prime, he was scoring bags of goals, and he still is scoring bags of goals, but he also had Heung-min Son to help him. You also had a solid midfield at that point. You also had a very decent defence to go along with that. It just was lacking a little bit extra that your owners were not willing to provide. It was just lacking a little bit of depth in key areas. It was lacking a little bit of quality in key areas and solid areas at that. That really may have just got you across that finish line to maybe have won something, to maybe have gone on to do something special. And I'm just, like I say, I just think it will be best for all parties. I would not be surprised that Kane stays and signs a new contract, even though I think he should leave to win trophies. Absolutely. I think Kane should kick up more of a fuss on this. I think he should show some ambition and show some sort of level of demand, because, as I said before, it's all right scoring all these goals. It's all right being known as maybe the top goal scorer of your club. It's all right maybe going on to break Alan Shearer's goal scoring record in the Premier League. That's fine, but they are individual awards. The name of the game is to win trophies. The name of the game is to be a team player, as part of a team, as part of a club. Go on and win silverware. If you're just doing this individually, like I say, you might as well have taken up golf. You might as well have taken up tennis, a single-player sport. I don't understand why you wouldn't want that, why you wouldn't want to be in this game to win trophies and do all that great stuff. Go on and express yourself on a Champions League stage. Go out and express yourself in a top league and be a player. Like, if he stays at Spurs and they somehow manage to win a trophy, that is going to be somewhat special in itself. But it's very unlikely to happen. It's very unlikely to happen. As harsh as it may sound, it's very unlikely that Tottenham are going to win a trophy in the coming years, and especially whilst Harry Kane is still there, because as fantastic as what Harry Kane is, as phenomenal as what he is, it's a team game. It's a team game. And if Spurs had a better defence this season, they may have finished higher than 8th, because he scored 30 goals and no one's really talking about him, because obviously Erling Haaland overshadows him with the amount of records he broke, and obviously his 36, 37 goals that he scored this season in the Premier League. Kane carried Spurs on his back this season, and yet it's an 8th place finish for Spurs. It's just facts. It's just facts. Kane had so many opportunities to kick up a fuss and did not. Exactly. I feel like this may be his last opportunity, because I feel like when it comes to the end of next season and he's deciding whether or not that where his footballing future may lie, he's thinking about, oh, do I go here? Do I go there? I want a free transfer next season, or do I stay with Spurs? Like I say, teams can move on by that point. Real Madrid could go and sign Mbappe next year. Bayern Munich could go and get a Victor Osimhen, or they could get a new up-and-coming striker, like the striker from, I don't know, maybe Atalanta, whose name escapes me. It's like Haaland, but it's like Højlund or something along them lines. They may go and get him. They may go and get a Randall Kolo Muani. They may get someone else. They may go and get someone else that maybe they move on from Harry Kane to. Man United could go and get Victor Osimhen. Man United could go and get any one of the number of strikers that they've been linked to this transfer window. Things can move on very, very quickly, and I think it will. I just think it will. It will be Kane's last chance, and in the end, he may be forced to stay at Spurs, because either it's going to be going to Spurs, or it's going to be a sideward step. And at that point, you may as well stay at Spurs. Do you think we will sign James Maddison? I think you will. I think for one reason or another, the runway to James Maddison is, for whatever reason, clear. And I said this earlier in the video. I don't understand why it's clear, because for me, he improves every single team in the Premier League in terms of their midfield. I think he improves it. His attacking ability, his quality in terms of his creativity, his passing, his dribbling, all of this good stuff that he creates for himself and his teammates, he's brilliant at. He's brilliant at set pieces. He's brilliant at bringing others into play. He's just brilliant in the attacking third, and he's Premier League proven, and he gets around about 20 goals and assists per season in a Leicester side that obviously has been on the decline for a number of years. Now, you throw him in that Spurs team and he can improve Son to be back to where he was at his best. He can improve Kulusevski as another creative outlet. He can improve, and that's the scary part, he can further improve Harry Kane if obviously Kane does stay. The English connection, the creativity he can bring, I think would be immense. And I think it will really work out well with James Maddison going to Tottenham. But like I say, I just don't understand why more teams aren't invested and more interested in James Maddison going forward. I'd love to know what you think on that and whether you think he's the right player for your club. But I personally, from the outside looking in, can only see this being a very positive and very ambitious move by Tottenham. For Maddison, I don't know why he's not holding out for maybe a Champions League move. But at the same time, I think if you can get him whilst you can get him, fantastic move by Tottenham. What position do you think he will play in the Postecoglou system? It's got to be number 10. It's got to be a number 10. He's not exactly the best at his pressing, which I think might be a slight problem. But if you can disguise it, I think if you can get other players that are around him, that will be the legs of James Maddison so that they can win the ball back, do the industrial side of the game, and then give the ball to the more creative outlets of the team, your Sons, your Maddisons, maybe even your Kanes as well. It will work. It will work, in my opinion. And like I said, you've got the English connection of Maddison and Kane. I just personally think that it could be a very good move. And like I say, I think there are a couple of flaws to his game in terms of maybe the defensive side of Maddison, but they're not completely terrible, that it can't be worked upon or they can't be disguised in some way that you play more to his strengths than you play to his weaknesses. There are a lot of Spurs supporters who don't seem to rate Maddison. I saw a little bit of that. I cast my eye over social media, and some people are saying that this is a good move. Some people are saying that they don't really rate him. I think his output should outweigh it all, right? I think it takes some of the pressure off Harry Kane and Heung-min Son to produce week in, week out. I think his output just simply would outweigh it. And I think, like I say, in a declining Leicester squad over the years, he's still managed to stand out and be brilliant. So imagine what it's going to be like in a Tottenham squad who, okay, have somewhat declined in recent years as well, but still have star quality in that team that we know that they can find their form again. We know the likes of Son can find his form again. We know he's had a bit of a dip this season, but who's to say that that dip will be sustainable? And who's to say that he can't find his form again? We know that obviously Kane has scored 30 goals this season. Doesn't look like he's going to be slowing down anytime soon. And Kulusevski had a great start to his Tottenham career, died down a little bit this season. But at the same time, who's to say that he can't get better as a player? I think that this could be the gel that kind of binds all them three together. Some, strangely enough, think he does not work hard off the ball and think he has a bad attitude. I don't know about the bad attitude. I personally, I mean, I've got to be honest again, I'm not a Leicester fan. So maybe there was stuff going on in-house at Leicester that I just have slightly more overlooked. I know that obviously people are questioning his work rate. But again, you can disguise that. You can disguise that work rate. He probably doesn't have the best work rate as, say, someone else, like, I don't know, off the top of my head, a Moises Caicedo, for example. Like, Moises Caicedo and the likes of N'Golo Kante in his prime, absolute beasts of players that would run up and down a pitch for 90-plus minutes, day in, day out. But you can disguise that. If you've got players around him that are prepared to do the legwork, you can disguise it. And all Maddison has to do is be in the right place at the right time and be smart and be intelligent about his positioning to either be in a place where he can win the ball back or be in a position where he can receive the ball to turn defense into attack. I think you can disguise it. I think it can work out. And I think, like I say, I personally think that this could be a very good move by Tottenham. Because of that, I think it can be disguised well. I think it can work out really well. And I don't really buy into the idea that just because his work rate is poor means it's going to be a very poor signing. That's just my personal opinion on that. I think his output in terms of his goals and his assists and his creativity and his chances created are all going to outweigh the one flaw he has, or seemingly has, in terms of his work rate. Do you think Richarlison will come good for us? I'm going to be honest with you, dude. I do not rate Richarlison at all. I've not rated him. I didn't rate him at Watford. I didn't rate him at Everton. I don't rate Richarlison at all. I think he's got a massive ego and he opens his mouth too much for a player that is average at best. I'll be completely honest with you. I don't rate him in the slightest. I think he's got a massive ego that he can't live up to. I personally just don't rate him at all. He's got a little something about him, but he goes on like he's the second incarnation of R9, and I can't let that go, to be honest. He's just a weird guy in general, it seems. And it seems like he's massively big-headed and he thinks he's so much better than what he is. That's just my personal opinion on him. I'm worried he is a Kane replacement. Yeah, I'd be worried about that too. If Kane does go and you're going to just stick with Richarlison as your replacement, I would genuinely be worried about that, because there's no way you're replacing a 30-goal-a-season striker in Harry Kane with a guy who's only scored 1 goal this season, took his shirt off for all of the goals that he scored, got more yellow cards than goals this season, cost 50 to 60 million, and 3 of those goals were offside. And to make it worse as well, when he did score that, because as he's put here, the chicken dinner against Liverpool was embarrassing. Yeah, because he celebrated that like he scored a winning goal. Now, don't get me wrong, the comeback from Tottenham that day was great, but obviously, as we know, Liverpool went on and got the winning goal through Diego Jota on that day. He went from celebrating like he just won the World Cup for his country or won the Champions League for Spurs in a winning goal effort, the way that he celebrated, to obviously then crying because Liverpool went on and scored a winning goal. Like, it couldn't, that on that day, it couldn't have happened any better. It couldn't have happened any better. John Hyman, hey bro, how you doing? Nice to see you, my dude. Hope you're doing well on this Tuesday morning. Do you think he will improve our defense? Who are we talking about when you improve defense? Who? You talking about Richarlison improving the defense? Oh, right, we will. Sorry, my bad. My eyes are terrible and I cannot read. I'm very, very poor. I think you have to. Like, I wouldn't trust. I know you are after a centre back. I know you've been linked with a few centre backs across this transfer window so far. I think you have to. Who you get is going to be a question. I wouldn't like to, if I was a Tottenham fan, I wouldn't like to trust another season of the likes of Eric Dyer and Christian Romero as a back 2 or part of a back 3. I know, obviously, Davinson Sanchez is leaving, and I'm sure a lot of Tottenham fans are happy about that. But yeah, I think you definitely need to. I think Romero, as much as he has the makings of a good defender, is way too rash. Eric Dyer, I have never rated. I feel like you have to, and who you get in that position is going to be very intriguing to see. I know you've been linked with Maguire, which doesn't make any sense to me. I know you've been linked with the guy from Roma, whose interest seems to have cooled. Is it Ignate? What's his name? Guy from Roma. His name escapes me. I think it begins with I. Ibanez. And I've been linked with Ibanez of Roma. I know that you've had Clement Longley as a permanent transfer as an idea. Again, they're not exactly the most exciting players, but at the same time, I think as Tottenham fans, I don't know. I don't think you've got a lot of options left anymore to sort of be forced to trust the process and trust Postecoglou's judgment. That's all I'll say on that one, because you've tried everybody else under the sun as manager. And now you've got this guy that's coming in. He's a little bit of an unknown figure. I know that obviously he was managing Celtic last season, but a bit of an unknown figure. The common factor is it's Levy, isn't it? That's the common factor in all of these managers and all of these eras of different eras you've been going through these past several years. And sooner or later, you got to look at the common factor in this and the common thread, and that's obviously Daniel Levy and the ownership and the people in power at Tottenham, and go, well, it clearly isn't the manager. The players may not exactly be good enough, but it's got to be the ownership, because the ownership put these people in place. So, Langley, we've got to be joking. He was part of our worst defence in history. Like I say, dude, Daniel Levy loves a cut deal price. He loves a bargain. And with it seemingly looking like Langley is not going to be part of Xavi's plans at Barcelona, it does seem to suggest that he could be available for a bargain of a price. So, again, you might have to be looking at shopping at the likes of any kind of bargain kind of store, rather than going to your Waitroses or even sort of like your Tesco's and your Sainsbury's. You're probably looking at like your Aldi's and Lidl's, and now there's not necessarily anything wrong with shopping at Aldi and Lidl, because sometimes you can find some good things, and the random aisle is always fun. Let's face it, a random transfer here and there is kind of fun and could work out, a bit of a gamble. But you're not exactly going Poundland. Yeah, Poundland. You're going to your Poundland rather than your Waitroses or even your Sainsbury's or your Asda's or your Tesco's. You're going to your Poundland. So, yeah, that's Daniel Levy for you. If he's not bringing F1 or Beyonce or whoever else in the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium for a concert, for a F1 track, or for whatever else he's got planned, whether it be boxing or maybe he's going to turn it into an ice hockey rink or whatever it may be, he's simply not interested in trying to provide for Tottenham on the pitch. So that's just the nature of what Daniel Levy is. And sooner or later, I think all your fans need to wake up to that, because I know that obviously some people are angry about the whole leadership, and I understand that some people are turning against him day by day. But it's not going to be. It's not going to be pretty, shall we say? It doesn't seem anyway. I heard your team is interested in the Dutch guy from Wolfsburg. Yes, we talked about him yesterday, Mickey van der Veen. Tottenham are allegedly interested in him as well. Left-sided centre-back. Looks to be a solid addition if one of our teams can get him. Young defender. Looks good on the ball. A little bit rash again, but I think with experience and with obviously maybe playing under a better coach and a better manager, maybe he can kind of file down those rough edges that he displays. But he looks a very, very good player. And again, he's the type of player that obviously Liverpool are interested in, because obviously we need to look at our defense, and we need to sort out our defense. And I think Tottenham needs to sort out their defense as well. Yeah, I've heard he's super quick as well. He's a big aerial presence as well as being competent with the ball at his feet, but he's also very quick. And I think if you play a high line, which I think Tottenham are going to look to do this season, and I know that obviously Liverpool do as well, I think that could be a very, very big asset to have. How much does he cost? Rumours are he's going to be about 30 million, maybe rising to 40, but we'll wait and see, obviously, if anything does materialise there. I don't know. He looks a very good defender, and he looks to be or have something that obviously a lot of defenders don't have, which is pace. And obviously, if you play a high line, like I say, like what Tottenham are looking to do, like Liverpool do on a constant basis, it only makes sense to go after a very quick defender. Do you think he will end up at Liverpool? We need a left-sided centre-back. He fits the bill. He fits the calibre of player that we're looking for. I think Jurgen Klopp would like him. I think he's a kind of player that Jurgen Klopp would like to get his hands on and to kind of mould into his sort of image. I think he'll be good for the present. I think he'll be good for the long term. We'll have to wait and see, though. I think Liverpool, their main aim is to strengthen the midfield right now. And obviously there are a few plates spinning in the air on that one in terms of midfield options that Liverpool could be after. I'm just not so sure if right now we will have the focus or whether we'll have the money to maybe go for the midfielders we want and then this guy as well. So we'll have to wait and see on that one. I could be wrong, but I do quite like him. From the bits that I've seen and from the bits I've heard and done my research on, I do quite like this guy. And I think that this guy could provide something for us. Who are Liverpool after? Well, there's Kefren Turam, obviously. That deal doesn't seem to be going away, but we seem to obviously have to now wait until after the European Championships, seemingly to get some sort of progress on that. Manu Kone, that deal seems to have gone a bit quiet in recent weeks. We've got the likes of, who was it yesterday? Jeremy Doku, that doesn't seem to be going away from years gone by. I know he's a winger, but I think we're looking to maybe look for a bit more of a sustainable replacement for Salah, just in case. And then, of course, there's a lot more to be open about. There's a lot more to look into. And I don't know. I just feel like Liverpool, we started off very well. We got out the blocks really quickly with Alexis McAllister, a fantastic deal that was. But at the same time, we need to do more. We definitely need to do more in those kinds of key areas that, of course, we lacked in last season. I think our attack is fine for the most part. But midfield and defence is where we really need to look up. And we really need to improve and get some quality players in those areas. I'm not always a massive fan of spending massively. I don't know why fans constantly say that we need to spend massive amounts of money on key and certain players. I think you can find bargains wherever you look, as long as you do the extensive research and you look in the right areas. Look at Brighton, for example. They do their research to the finest details right now, and it seems to be working out for them in terms of their recruitment. We'll wait and see, but we'll have to wait and see. Your team needs a rebuild. I heard Klopp does not do well in rebuilds. I don't think he's really ever had a rebuild. He's not really had the opportunity or really stayed around long enough for a rebuild. Obviously, things ended quite badly at Dortmund. And that was the time where they needed a rebuild, and Klopp didn't do well in his final season, and then, of course, he left. So I don't think he's really had the opportunity to do a rebuild. And obviously, with the way our club runs, we don't really have the endless supply of funds that, say, a Manchester City does in order to do that. Our recruitment hasn't been amazing these past couple of years. Our sell-to-buy model, if you like, has failed because we don't really sell to buy anymore. Like, the last player we sold was probably Sadio Mane for 30 million. And when you look at the players now that are entering into the final year of their contracts and they're being sold for 65 to 70 to 80 million, it makes you think, how the hell did we drop the ball there and only sell them for 30 million? We don't really do the whole sell to buy thing anymore. We keep players on for way too long. We have this sentimental thing at our club. There are definitely issues there, and it's definitely not perfect by any means, but you know, a rebuild could be needed. I think we've needed to rip out that midfield for a couple of years, and I think we started to do that this season. We've got rid of Keita, Oxlade-Chamberlain, Milner. Whether it was right or not to do it whilst they obviously just ran down their contracts, probably not. But at the same time, we've at least started to get rid of these types of players, and we've started to obviously see things in a different way. So hopefully, fingers crossed, it is the start of a rebirth, shall we say, for Liverpool. Your team has not been the same since Mane left. I don't think you can necessarily put it down to Mane. I know Mane provided a hell of a lot, not just in terms of on the ball, but also off the ball as well, in terms of his pressing and everything. I think we're starting to get an idea as to where we're going, particularly with the front line, whether it be Luis Diaz coming back from injury because we missed him for a large part of last season, whether it be Jota as well coming back from injury. We definitely missed his ice-cold finishes, shall we say. Darwin Núñez slowly but surely, I think, finding his feet, and I'm predicting a big season for him next season. I really have my full backing on Darwin Núñez for the next campaign, and I really hope that he'll eventually show why we paid so much money for him. So fingers crossed there. Salah is just Mohamed Salah, absolutely phenomenal. So I agree with you to a point, but I don't think we can all put it down to Sadio Mane and how poorly he was. Like, our attack was okay, it was lacking a little something last season, but you could tell that our midfield was the main Achilles heel for Liverpool. We weren't pressing as much, we weren't running as much, and the industrial side of our game just really fell a bit flat at various points during the season. And obviously it did change when we changed our formation slightly to move Trent into more of a midfield role. But by then it was too little too late, wasn't it? And you need to replace Van Dijk, Trent, and Henderson. Trent, if we move into midfield, definitely not. I think having that versatility of him being a midfielder that can also play as a right back, I think will help us next season, because I think that we will have a bit of flexibility there. If he moves into midfield and he's not having the best game because the opposition is packing out that midfield and is targeting him, we'll just pull him out back to a right back position in which he can receive the ball in a bit more space and maybe create a bit more from that position. So I think Trent's changing position could really help Liverpool going forward. Van Dijk hasn't had his best season, maybe needs a bit of competition to give him a kick up the backside that he needs to maybe refocus and get better. So fingers crossed that Van Dijk's dip in form is just through him playing a number of games these past couple of years since coming back from injury, and that it's maybe just a lack of competition that's maybe got him a little bit overconfident, shall we say. And as for Henderson, there is still a role for Henderson at this club in terms of the leadership he brings, and obviously the way that he can be brought in for big games, show that leadership, and for tight games as well to maybe see games out. I think he just needs to drop to more of a James Milner role. Just drop to that James Milner role, part-time player, doesn't start every game, doesn't necessarily play every game either, but brings vital leadership to the team when needed and brings vital energy, I guess you'd say, to that midfield when needed. But otherwise, I completely agree with you. Like, I think it is time that we maybe start to look a bit more forward on this. There was a clip of West Ham fans saying Van Dijk is a fraud. You're always going to get that, aren't you? I'm sure there are probably clips of people saying that various Tottenham players, various Man United players, various Chelsea players, and that lot of frauds. It wasn't that long ago when we signed Van Dijk that obviously people were laughing at the price tag, saying he's nothing more than a B-Tech Chris Smalling, or whatever the comparison was to Chris Smalling. And he proved them wrong. He's been playing at a top level for a long, long time. He played at a top level when he was playing for Celtic. I know it's obviously a Scottish league, but he was still playing very well at that club. He played very well for Southampton for the years he was there, when he was playing at a top level in the Premier League, or at least head and shoulders above the rest, both literally and metaphorically, of course, because of how tall he is. But yeah, this year he's gone downhill, and do I still think he's top class? We've seen it. That's all I said. We've seen how good he has been, and we've seen how much quality he has and has been playing at for the past few years. To get close to the Ballon d'Or as a defender is something that is incredible in itself. So we do know that there is quality in there. I think he's been let down by his midfield this season. So I don't think it's all completely on him. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that as a get out of jail free card for him. There have been mistakes by him that have been frustrating. There have been moments by him that have been insanely frustrating. I just think maybe if we get a better midfield in, I say if we get another defender in, if Konate can stop getting injured, for God's sake, because Jesus Christ, he's such a good defender to have alongside Van Dijk, but if he can stop getting injured, I think we may see Van Dijk come good again next season. And I'm hoping it's just a dip in form. I'm hoping that maybe with a bit more competition, it might give him sort of a wake-up call. Like I say, I'm just hoping it is a bit of a dip in form and nothing more. But yeah, I still think he's a very good player. Something that's a very good player in there. And I think a lot of people are sleeping on that going forward. If I'm proven wrong by the end of next year because his performances are still at a same declining level, I'll hold my hands up and say that I was wrong and that I don't think he's necessarily been a fraud. I don't necessarily think he's been completely overrated. But at the same time, I think the injury messed him up a little bit. And of course, he got found out a little bit in that sense. So we'll have to wait and see. I think McAllister's going to be a good baller for you. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a quality signing. I think for the price tag we got him for, the kind of release clause that we got him for is phenomenal. I think for the player he is, what he will bring to this side, I think he'll be great. And I think depending on who we get to fit in that midfield alongside him, I think will only enhance his value, enhance the player that he is. And of course, at 24 years of age, I think he's only going to get better. So I think McAllister is a very, very good signing as well to that degree. So I'm very excited to see his development at Liverpool. I'm very interested to see how he fits in with that Liverpool squad and how well that he can do going forward. And if he can obviously be a part of Liverpool's rebirth and resurrection. So fingers crossed on that one. But that's all I've got time for today, guys. That's all I've got time for today. I've got to run. So thank you all so much for watching and listening. These are just obviously been the thoughts, comments, opinions, predictions, feelings, whatever you want to call it, of this guy. I want to know what you guys think on any of the stories that I've talked about. It's been a very interesting and entertaining stream. Thank you for everybody that gets involved. Thank you, Darren, for your input and chat as well, and whoever else has come by to watch the stream today. Thank you all so much for watching and listening and getting involved. Hit that like button on the way out if you haven't already. Subscribe if you're new or want to see more content like this. Both things are always and forever greatly appreciated. Thank you all so much once again for watching, listening, getting involved. Continue to do so. If you're obviously watching this in the future, away from it obviously being live and all of that good stuff, all will be greatly appreciated to me. So thank you all so much for doing all of that. Thanks again for everybody getting involved. I've been Fletch. This has been another Fletch Talks live stream. Thank you all so much for watching and listening again. And I will see and speak to you all again soon in another video or live stream or whatever the hell it may be. Thank you all again.